Hi, my name is Nicky and I'm the Office Manager at Talent Recruitment, and today I'll be speaking to you about your interview with the client. This is really, really important. Your interview can make a huge difference. It can be the difference between getting the job and not. And obviously it's a highly stressful situation. You know what's coming, you need to be prepared. So what I would always do for any interview that you go to, please make sure your CV is up to date, especially if you've already emailed one that might not be up to date. Make sure when you go for your interview, make sure you've got an up-to-date CV. I would always say carry a few copies with you because you don't know if there's going to be multiple board members during your interview joining you, so carry a few CVs with you. Also have a copy of your certificates with you. They don't normally need to be certified, just have photocopies of your certificates just so you can present them if the interviewer does ask for them. Next, I would say be as calm and collected as possible. People freak out during interviews. I have seen it firsthand. I've seen people panting. I've seen people getting up and walking around. Trust me, you need to relax and just concentrate on what the person's asking you. I would say research the company as much as you possibly can. I always suggest actually researching your interviewer as well. You not only want to make a good impression during that interview, but you want to get the person to like you. So what I always suggest is finding out who's interviewing you and actually doing some research on them. You can go on Facebook or LinkedIn, do some stalking and try to see if you can find out what their personal likes are. And if you have something in common, mention it during your interview. You know, what you can do is try and make it as natural as possible. And if it fits into your conversation, you can mention, hey, you happen to do horse riding as a fun thing on the weekends. And the person goes, me too. That's the best part of interviewing, is actually connecting to the person. Your next point is to listen very carefully to the person who's asking the questions and also what the question is. A lot of people get so nervous during the interview that they listen to the first half of the question and not realize there's actually a few more parts to the question afterwards, and they only answer the first part, or even if they do answer the question, sometimes they might ramble off on something completely different. So listen carefully to the person, let them finish their question, and if you're unsure about what they're asking, ask them it. Or you might even repeat the question to yourself. So they might ask you, what are your greatest strengths? This is a very common question, by the way. And you say, what are my greatest strengths? That's a really good question. And then that gives you a few seconds to really just think about what you're going to say. So sometimes repeating the question that they ask you makes you come across as really thoughtful, but it actually gains you some time to think about your answer. Don't ramble on, please do not. We often interview candidates who are asked something as simple as, what are your weaknesses? And what I'm expecting is low attention to detail or whatever the case may be, and they end up going on for half an hour speaking about their family history, which has nothing to do with what I actually asked them. So try to stick to what the person's asking, keep your answer as short as possible. I'd say possibly a few minutes at most. You don't want to be the whole time talking. It actually takes a lot of our time away from us. So what I would say next is just make sure you are as honest as possible with the person who's interviewing you. If they ask you a difficult question and you have to think really carefully about it and you're thinking, this might not be so good, I actually don't want them to know that I was fighting with my past boss or something like that, rather just be honest. Trust me, we will find out through doing your reference checks, we will find out everything. And if you're not honest with us up front, often when we find out the truth, it doesn't reflect very well. So even if, for example, you had a fight with your last boss and that's why you left, if we ask you a difficult question, rather just say, listen, the reason why I left the company is because that company was heading in a different direction. I did not see myself fitting in with where it was going. That's a really nice way of saying you didn't agree with what the boss was saying. So be honest, be truthful, but there's always a nice way to something that isn't good. But if it's something really, really bad, for example, if you have a criminal record, you have to disclose this up front. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you are not honest with everything and during your employment it is found out that you actually had a criminal record, unfortunately we can take measures against you and you can even lose your job. So always be as honest as possible. Next is the tough topic of salary expectations. This is something really difficult and I can really understand why candidates struggle with this. Because let's just say you are being heavily underpaid. Let's just say you're getting paid 7,000 Rand for a job at market value is going for about 15,000 Rand, and the job you're applying for is paying 18,000 Rand. And you're thinking, that's the salary I should earn, that's what I deserve, I'm being completely underpaid at the moment. And then the company that you're interviewing with goes, what's your current salary? And you think, I know what companies are going to do. I know they're going to base their current salary that they're going to offer me off of what I'm earning currently. And often they do that. But just be honest, be realistic with your salary expectations. You can say, listen, I'm earning 7,000 Rand, but I know what the market value is. I know what we should be earning. And so you can actually then say that I know what I'm worth and I would like 15,000 Rand. If you're not feeling brave and you don't feel like negotiating a salary during the interview, the safest bet is actually just to hand over your payslip and let the HR do their work. But again, remember that companies will often base your salary off of what you're currently earning. So it is a difficult situation. You can obviously negotiate after the interview. That's always when I suggest it's the best time. So after the interview, if you know they like you and you know they're keen to move on, you can then clearly state, listen, I know I'm earning 7,000 Rand, but 15,000 is really what I'm looking for. Just keep in mind it might make you lose the job, but you know you are the one to be true to yourself. Just remember it's your responsibility to follow up with the company after the interview. Firstly, I would send an email about a week after the interview just to check up to see how things are going. Make it very professional. Make sure you are obvious about how excited you are for the opportunity and how eager you are. If they do not respond after that, I would say give it another week before giving a phone call. And then if you can't get through to the person, I would say after about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, chances are you haven't gotten the job. Some companies don't have the decency or the courage to let you know you haven't been shortlisted. It happens sometimes. That's why it's always great to go through a recruitment agency, because we will make sure to update you and let you know what's happening. Alright, so there are certain questions that you can prepare for that you can always expect during most of your interviews. These questions are: tell me about yourself, tell me your strengths, your weaknesses, your salary expectations, reasons for leaving companies, and why should we hire you? So I'm going to go through them one by one now. Tell me about yourself. This is a brilliant opportunity for you to shine. And you think, what on earth should I even speak about? There's so many aspects to myself. But what I would say do is keep it as relevant to the job as possible. So for example, if you're applying for a logistics coordinator in a logistics company, you can say, well, actually, I've got 10 years in the logistics field. I specialize in X, Y, and Z, which is what the company happens to specialize in. So as I said again, keep it relevant to what the job is. If you want to be a bit fun and you want to show your quirky personality, you can include some fun facts about yourself. I'll stick to a few minutes. So some strengths you can mention that are really important is if, for example, you're applying for a managerial role, you can mention that you are really good at bringing teams together, you provide good morale. That's something highly relatable to the job. Besides that, questions you can expect are your weaknesses, and this is actually one of my favorite questions to ask my candidates because I can see how much they struggle with it. Even though it's a commonly known question, people still get so caught off guard by this, and they always stick to the, oh, I'm too hard working, that's my weakness, or oh, you know, I stay at the office too late, that's my weakness. And I always laugh, and I actually just stop them and I say, please just tell me your real weaknesses, because telling me you work too hard is not a real weakness. So this is also where it's your chance to be a little bit vulnerable, but also keep it professional. So I wouldn't suggest diving into your family background and your skeletons in your closet, but be realistic and be honest. It is a very difficult question because you don't want your answer to actually cancel you out of the job. This is where your research comes in handy as well. Make sure you know what the company is actually looking for. But what you can say is, I do sometimes take a bit longer to do tasks because I want to make sure it's 100%. I check over things a few times, and if they're not perfect, I might take a bit longer. That's a realistic weakness. And what you can also do is, if you do have a weakness, you can say how you are actually improving on it. For example, one of my weaknesses are actually my attention to detail. I tend to rush through things sometimes because I have a great sense of urgency. I always, whenever something comes through, my first thing is I want to finish it, get it done, and get it dusted, and phone the client and be like, hey, I've done your job. But it's actually a bit of a weakness to have low attention to detail. So as I've just explained myself now, you can see almost you're like, oh, that's fine, you know, you're urgent, you're good with your customers. So it's a nice way to explain your weaknesses, is tell them what it is, but tell them actually the strength that's part of that weakness and how you're working to improve it. So that's an honest weakness. People will always appreciate your honesty. Don't go too much into the dark side of you. Okay, next is salary. I did touch on this earlier, but people normally base the salary they offer you off of what you're currently earning. Again, do not lie about this. They will find out, and it doesn't show anything good about you. Another question that will be asked is your reasons for leaving. Now, as a recruiter, I normally go through every single company you've been with, and I will ask you why you left every single company, and I dive really deep. I'll ask you lots of questions. So you might say, I was retrenched, and people think, oh, retrenched, that's fine, okay, next question. But no, I dive deeper. I'll say, how many of you were retrenched? What happened? You know, how are you feeling at that time? We want to dive deeper into how you're feeling. So we might make you open up a bit there, which if we ask you those kind of questions, we want you to open up. If it was a tricky situation, you need to think about this interview beforehand and really plan your answers ahead. Don't sound too scripted though. We can tell that from a mile away. So make it sincere, make it, you know, from your heart, and just say the most important question is, why should we hire you? This is something very tricky. Why should we hire you? You think, well, I need the money, you should hire me. But no, we want something that you will benefit the company. So for example, you could say, well, I'm a social media manager. I had a look at your social media, and I can improve your social media by doing X, Y, and Z. Almost have a plan for how you're going to implement things in the company. So you can actually do your research in the company and see, well, your social media, I see you're not doing lots of videos. I'm your video person, I can do it for you. That really, really adds value. You want to seem important, you want to seem valuable to the company before they even hire you. So mentioning the things that you can improve in the company as part of your reason why they should hire you is the best way to go about it. I'd actually like to mention one little quick tip. So they might ask you, if you want an airplane and it was filled with jelly beans, how would you get those jelly beans off one by one? And you think, what a weird question, like why would you even ask me this? And sometimes they do this to put you in an uncomfortable situation, because the questions I've given you, you can all prepare for. Almost every person will ask you those questions, but sometimes I like to throw you a curveball. So an example of this question, I actually had one of my clients ask one of my candidates this, and I said, oh, what did you say? And they said, no, I'd put parachutes on each little jelly bean and push them out. And it was something so cute, and the company wasn't expecting a realistic answer, because it's a really silly question in the first place. So this is where they want to test your creativity. They want to test how you think under pressure. And that's an example of a really odd question a company might ask you, just to put you on the spot. So it's a really nice way to put candidates on the spot and see how they react. And again, if you're caught off guard, which you probably will be with a weird question like that, you might even laugh. Laughing is a great way to break the tension in an interview. Then just be yourself. And that's the great way to win at an interview. So those are my interview tips. I hope I've helped you. But if you want to talk to me, you can call me on 031 265 2000, or you can email me on nicky@propoint.co.za. Thank you so much.